All right. Hello and welcome back to the Magic Raincast. We was interrupted earlier due to technical difficulties.
Yeah.
As you know, that we all live in Malaysia, and that is not an occurrence. That is a certainty. So, um, just going to rewind here back. We have here with us the executive producer of Lil Critter Workshop, Wale Omar, and we have the director of animation of Little Critter Workshop, Brian Chong, right? Both of them just introduced themselves, right? And currently, we have to rewind a second and ask this question back due to the transmission interruption earlier, right? So we're going to ask this very important question, which Walid has actually answered in all earnest, in full earnestness, right? Like he was so smooth, and it breaks my heart to ask him this question again. Because the moment will never actually transpire again. But Julia, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the question was, and I'll be repeating. So, like, you had your beginnings in music and audio industry, and you had a change in heart for content creation and animation. So, like, what's the story behind it?
Well, it wasn't really a change of heart. It was more of a evolve or progression into it because we were in the creative. We were part of the storytelling industry, right? So it's just a different medium, songwriting or animation. So what really happened is way back in, I think around, I don't know, 2006, 2000 maybe, MDEC had just got into animation and were funding original content coming out of Malaysia. We were one of the top music and sound post houses in Malaysia. So naturally, some of the producers and creators were looking for services to complement their animation. So we were working on a lot of that. We worked on some really great projects. We worked on some downright awful projects. We worked on projects that stopped halfway. So I got to sort of be a passenger on the journey of animation in Malaysia and sort of be part of it, but also be away from it to see how people approach creating shows and producing them. And incidentally, early on in that time, a good friend of mine and a peer, Edie from Guild Garage, would say to me, "Well, you're a good producer. You get things done. You should think about producing animation." And I was like, maybe one day, who knows? But I kind of left it there. But what happened was I was moving out of advertising. I was looking for more creative outlets for my music and sound, and then I met sort of Brian Chong, and he came to me looking for some awesome music for his animation, and we sort of kind of hung out and got to know each other. I kind of liked his style. He was very unusual, a little weird, definitely kooky, definitely. I would say left of center. Not that he likes that term left of center, but like I would say he's, unusual. And I kind of like, my partner, we sort of looked and sort of, he kind of suggested, we could make, do shows together, combine forces. And I kind of liked the idea, thought about it. And I sort of said, hey, why not? And I chucked a load of money, started Little Critter, had my sound company as well to keep my family fed, while we just threw money at this project and see what happened. So for me, it was very natural. It wasn't like, oh, I think I'm going to do animation now. No, it was like, how can we do things better? How can we tell our stories through animation? And I had the perfect partner in terms of Brian to help realize visually what I felt we could do in Malaysia and for Malaysian animation. And that answers it.
Very nice answer. But what does Brian have to say to the words of endearments such as cookie, left and center, and unusual? How do you take all these words of compliments? It's overwhelming, actually.
Pretty normal because those are pretty good compliments to me, and because I don't really take a lot of stuff seriously, and most of these stuff pretty much do reflect what I am. I am tricky, I am weird, I am a bit little bit of a rocky side, but that's all kind of part and parcel to what the person I am, especially with the animation field. You've been around cartoons for so long, you're bound to gonna act a little bit weird.
Yeah, I mean, interesting enough for Brian, a lot of Malaysian animators are very insular or they're very inward looking, whereas Brian, I think, like when we met, was almost like an animated character in himself, which is like, one of those interesting things because, a lot of animators, a lot of artists are very inward looking. They're kind of sort of, they don't really express themselves openly. Mind you, Brian, you don't really express yourself too openly because I don't let you, right? I keep you in the cave.
Yeah, in case I go a little bit too far on one side, but with me, it's all about just community. And this is the side effects of making cartoons because when you make cartoons and you want to get certain things right, like the faces, expression, the poses, you gotta act it out in front of the mirror. Otherwise, you're not going to feel it. Or your character might turn out, looking broken, and you're wondering why does my back hurt because it's not supposed to bend that way.
It's a method acting, but for cartoons, right?
Yeah.
All right, Julia, you wanna continue on?
Yeah, so when I went through like Lil Critter's showreel, right, I noticed there are like three kinds of shows. So like there's the education kind, which is like Hoggy, and the non high energy, fun, non-dialogue slapstick kind, which is like Buck and Buddy, and also the more heavier end, which is like Outlaw Dark. So like which is a better option for like children to consume?
I would choose Outlaw Dark because it's just amazing.
I think like if I can just like what you see there is, I think when we started the company with Brian, I asked him, we sort of looked at the industry and what people were doing and how they were doing it and what were the challenges, what were the failures, well, how could we do things better? And even though Brian's like 15 years and knows animation back to front, one of the things that I sort of ask the hard questions on is like, like why would we do a frame by frame animation for our first show? Why? Because like we've all got something to learn here when we're starting out. So let's work with this with respect to the simplest audience and develop our our understanding of show making, writing, scripting for the easiest audience, which is the preschool audience. So from that point of view, like we looked at shows and like our sort of philosophy and understanding is like, do you need to make the most amazing looking animation, or can we just do the simplest animation but have a really strong story, characters, and value proposition to the audience, and that will help, and maybe that will work. So like when we talked about Hoagie at our first show, we said to Brian, it's like, let's make a show that we know we can finish and make an animation execution that is going to look good, but it's really simple so we don't die on the line. And like all our greatest fears, right? All our fears and all the things I've witnessed working in it, I was like, we need to avoid all these things, right? So how do we do that? So Brian came back with this design and we went out to the US, got the right writers. My partner, the other partner, Lorna, she managed the writing, making sure the educational parts and the key staging and making sure the language was right for the international audience. So it wasn't like we had Brian for the visual. There was me making sure production and producing this was smart and finding the money and making sure the creative and the heart of the show was right. And we had Lorna, who was really one of the strong creative director and producer of our studio, making sure that the show and the content was right for kids and doing enough for the audience that we were making it for and not necessarily doing more, right, Brian, in terms of the technical execution of the show, Brian?
Which question is it? Because she was asking, is it right for children? And this is another particular question.
Yeah, well, no, I think like when you ask which is right, you got to talk about how we started and it was Hoagie. Obviously,
okay, yeah.
From there we moved on to Buck and Buddy and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Of course, when we started the company, one of the biggest things that we worry about is, if we start a project, will we finish it, right? So When we started Hoagie, we had a talented team of people who really know how to push stuff out, and it looks great, right? And even while the show is so simple, there are still nick problems here and there that you need to iron out because it's a learning process, and you're wondering to yourself, how is it so hard? Why is it so hard? I'm wondering. So that was a journey that literally, we made a lot of mistakes, but we learned from the mistakes, and we keep going and building, like Buck and Buddy or the other shows with the experience that is learned from those mistakes.
Yeah, and Outlaw Dark was our second show, like second thing we produced. Mm-hmm. And after doing Hoagie, it was a kind of like speaking to our team and saying, we just did, I think it's close to 9.5 hours of preschool shows. Let's do something different, right? So we pitched that to the IPCC at MDEC. And we kind of said, like, we want to make a show that probably at that time, not many broadcasters would buy. And they're like, why do you want to do that? It's like, we just want to do something for YouTube, just something crazy. And like Brian had this idea for a show, and we were like, okay, let's do it. And so we did that as an expression, really, right? And doing something different, Brian, because that was your baby, wasn't it? That we transformed into something else.
Yeah, it was an idea I had in college way back then when I started, illustrating characters and see how far I can go with it. So the opportunity came. Wallet gave that green light saying, okay, let's do something crazy. And we stuck this in there. And I say, okay, you know what? I want to do something interesting. I want to see if I can meld a bit of Western design with a bit of the Japanese one and create pseudo anime. That's what Outlaw Dark is pretty much is, right? Because back then when I was young, I read comics which are translated by Western artists, but they were originally Japanese. So in that transition, there was this art form that I kind of got hooked on, and I tried to replicate it and see if I can make it work with Outlaw Dark. But of course, with Outlaw Dark, that's like, well, it's done. I guess I'm happy.
I mean, we call it a fever dream of an idea, because there's very little of a narrative in it, and it is really just some weird fever dream of an idea, and we just had fun on it. But it was also just to, like Brian just said. But then, from moving into Buck and Buddy was a commercial decision, and a point as well that we wanted at the time, because I travel a lot. Obviously, one of the main things that I like for Lil Critter is that pre-COVID was that I was, traveling all the time at all the markets, trying to understand what was coming up as a trend, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think in 2015, when we first originally pitched that show, like, slapstick non-dialogue was high in demand, or was looked at, my kids were enjoying it. It was all over. There was, Lava, there's Oggy and the Cockroach, there's Tom and Jerry. It's a classic. And we wanted to do a show that didn't have dialogue and just was physical comedy and really sort of next step up animation. Mm-hmm. And that was the challenge, basically. So, and that we only just finished 2019 October, So 2015, idea, pitched, 24 years to raise the money and finish the show.
Wow.
Yeah. And most of the shows are like that, It takes such a long time to find the money, get the idea to a point where it can be made, it's
from conceptualization to the end, right? Absolutely. That right down to execution.
But I think, from a company point of view, when we look, if you want to ask us what resonates with us, we're a comedy company. We're a show in the ideally making laugh out loud comedy, slapstick, silliness, much like Brian, much like what amuses me. That's where we want to be. But we kind of needed to grow and make sure we understood what we were doing to get to that point. So when you see this and you see the new shows that we have, which top secret ones you can't see even, they're all in the comedy, irreverent comedy silliness. That's where we want to be in our cartoons. Isn't that right, Brian?
One day. We'll get there.
Yeah, I'm just curious. So satiate my curiosity, right? I'm not entirely sure how the animation industry works, right? But in the gaming industry, right, there are projects which are just abandoned. It could be finished, and then the producer says, let's pull the plug for whatever amount of reasons, right? Does that actually happen in the animation industry? Because the reason why I ask that is because um, some of my friends who have worked on projects for like 3 to 4 years developing a game, and they finish it, and at the end of the day, it never sees the light of day. And all their hard work is, I mean, they get paid for it, definitely, right? But they never see their hard work come to fruition. Does that actually happen in the animation industry? Mainly because you were referring to projects that don't get finished, etc., etc., right? So, but does this happen?
I can answer you. Of course, it does. There's stuff that doesn't finish because at the end of the day, if one of the important things and like my primary job is to ensure that we have the financing, the funding to produce the show to a quality and to a standard that can so it can be sold internationally. So that takes a lot of money. And what happens in Malaysia, and to no fault of anyone else, because we are in Malaysia, funds are limited, our currency is not the strongest. So there's lots of forces that are against an independent producer who's got a great idea, and it is down to the budget and the money you can raise. So if you can only raise, if you say you need, I don't know, 5 million ringgit, and you only have 2.5 million ringgit, and you decide to make it anyway, that's gonna cause a lot of problems, right? Either you don't finish it, either you finish it to a quality that's not acceptable. There's lots of variables in there, so I can't pick one, but I'm sure there's plenty out there. And I think it's important why you should have a good, strong creative management team. And that means for us, it's a strong finance person who can control finance. A good, strong producer will make sure that the financing is in place to complete it at the budget that you know that you need to make it at. And the number one rule as a producer is if you can't raise the money, don't do it. Find something else, right? But if you're going to just go ahead because you've got half the funding, then it's kind of you're going to everyone gets paid, but what happens at the end of it, right? And I think that's one of the the challenges that everyone has in Malaysia is raising enough money.
Right.
But actually, wouldn't like putting the half, not really half done. Like I would assume that usually when they say pull the plug, is like maybe like there's like 5 episodes or like pilot episodes that are already done and finished. Wouldn't posting it on YouTube and hoping it gets traction a good idea as well, or is it better to just shelf the entire thing?
Well, I'm sure they would probably put it on YouTube. I'd imagine if you've done it and you want to put it out there, then people will do that because, like you said, why wouldn't you? Just if you did 5 great episodes and just left it there and put it on YouTube, but then you got the question is who's going to find it, how they're going to find it, and everything involves money. Unfortunately, you need to promote it, right? So the bottom line is, when you're starting a company, any company, but animation, for we say, is that you need to be well funded because it's capital intensive, ain't it, Brian? And we did some smart things early on with that really sort of secured our 5-year footing. And that 5 years enabled us to really produce a lot of work and establish ourselves in the market industry internationally, not as a big player, but as a company known so that we could keep growing. And that's really the important thing, I think, here is having a long-term vision on how you're doing it and not thinking from cartoon show to cartoon show, but thinking from your company progression from 1 to 3 to 5 to 10 years. And that's how we've approached Lil Critter, I think. And even though we are creator driven and we create shows, I've really made sure we've mapped out 10-year plan for us to make sure that we have something to work to, and make sure we're still around.
Brian, anything to add?
But just to 2 points. First one would be wireless one when it comes to finance is, what he says is true, right? Being an animator, like me who knows nothing before I started running a company, I may think that a lot of things can be done to a particular number in my head, and that's proven wrong pretty much instantaneously. It's a huge financial investment. If if the everyday animator see that number, they'll faint. They'll faint. But the other question would be to what was the question I was asked before concerning the content that was cut off?
Like if like you already have the episode, like instead of just shelving it and not letting it see the day of, like just put it on YouTube.
Okay, yeah. So there's as well as said, there's a lot of reasons why if something is finished, it doesn't go out to the public. A lot. There could be, I don't know, maybe disputes. There could be rights or whatever. A lot of it's nitty-gritty stuff that is in there at the back that you will probably never know. But yeah, if you have content, if you have a game, if you have a video of something you animated and you want to show the world, by all means, right, you would want to show the world. But then the question asks, why haven't they put it out there? And chances are those questions will never be answered because it's something that is way at the back.
True enough. Does that satisfy your answer? Does that satisfy your question, Julia?
Yeah.
It's been like been a barrage of like very intensive questions. I'm just gonna cut the tension back a bit. Gonna ask a very simple question. Do you all have any underrated animations, right, or comedy shows, right? While we're on that subject, that you guys would recommend, shows, underrated animations, could be local, could be overseas, just to give perspective on what kind of stuff that you guys like.
So, Wale, you want to go first, or do you want to let the crazy one go first?
Yo, Brian is the man with the animation encyclopedia. So, grew up on this stuff. So, go ahead.
Well, okay. If you're saying underrated stuff, technically, I watch everything. So I can't really tell what is underrated. But if you're talking about genre, like what's an underrated Japanese anime within shonen, or or whatever particular thing you may go for, or you may Western life story animations, or what else, right? Like if you're saying, it's Soul, a good movie, I was like, yeah, man, that's a good movie. Everyone should watch that. If you're saying like, what kind of giant robot anime is kind of the best, that is underrated, I would say, Gao. No, nobody watches Gao Gaiga anymore. Pretty good show. Everybody talks about Transformers. So I can go very knee deep in a lot of stuff. So
let's go crazy. Let's go one for each genre. Or at least genres that you can think of right about now from the top of your head. Right.
Give me a genre and I'll give you an answer. It's gonna be at the moment.
Right. Western comedy.
Are you talking about animation or sitcoms?
Yeah, animation.
Western animation, 2D or CGI?
2D. Yeah, out for the time being.
Underrated, yes?
Yeah, underrated.
Underrated. Western. Something that people would kind of not watch these days. I would say, why don't you give it a whirl and watch Yellow Submarine?
Oh, wow. I've not heard of that.
The Beatles.
Yeah. Well, that's a very underrated show. It was hot now, but it was hot back then. But now people don't really kind of remember it, and it's a really good show. It's a mind bender. It's a good show to watch when you don't want to think.
Nice.
And you don't want to think.
What about satirical?
Satirical.
Yeah.
I want to say Family Guy, but okay. The most underrated Western one that I feel that was not really given a fair chance is that show that was created by the Simpsons creator. I forgot what his name was again. The one on Netflix about a princess woman.
Sorry, about what?
Is
it over?
from the Simpsons creator. He created a show on Netflix that's about a princess, Disenchanted or something like that, right? It's called Disenchanted. Yeah,
Disenchanted.
yeah. That show.
Yeah, the one that
Yeah, that show is actually pretty interesting, right? It's not your everyday norm where the writing and everything hits that nail where you expect it to hit. So it's kind of like a show you would just watch, just to, hey, this feels like something different. It may not have the high and low points that you expect from particular shows because you're used to that particular formula, but it gives you a little bit of a break here and there, and it's quite interesting to just watch how the characters interact. So it's a new formula. When it comes to animation, any animation that breaks the mold of storytelling when it comes to the formula is something to actually have a look at. It might not be something you would be used to because you expect something to happen, but give it a go. You might actually pick out something from these kind of shows and you say, and let's just say you have an idea. Hey, I know how to make this work. And you know what? That idea could blossom into, other stuff.
Right. Nice. Underrated local animation.
If you're talking, but I don't think there's any underrated one. I think most of the stuff here is quite high reach. I mean, Boy, and Boy, Alif Sophia, all the stuff. Those are quite high rated now, right? But talking about, what I grew up with and what I actually watched and I love to watch was pretty much Uso Santorian and Kluang Man.
Oh wow, Kluang Man and
Uso Santorian.
Uso Santorian. Yeah, I love the sing guy.
Yeah. So all those shows were, let's be honest, like it's not very well polished. But the one thing about those shows is that you can feel that the guys who created it, they have heart. It feels like it was there and it flows well. Even though when you look at it, it's like, why am I watching this? I can't stop looking. And you just keep watching it anyway. You go to the next episode. And also there is the Lat Kampung Boy. I think it's Kampung Boy Lat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one also was an interesting masterpiece, right? Animation was fluid. Things are great. That's like a testament to, if you were to do 2D animation in Malaysia with Malaysia characters, Malaysian-made characters, that will look very nice. But also, Wale introduced me something called Blue Curry Pup.
Wow, I haven't heard of this.
Wow. Well, yeah, actually, I used to work a lot with MFX, Moon FX, who are a really big animation VFX company, working predominantly in advertising. But they did passion projects. They had a really talented guy called Sidney Tan, who is now working in LA. I think for the Mill, if I'm not mistaken. And he came up with this show concept called the Blue Curry Pup, which is 2D animation, traditional, right? About Malaysian kids hung around this kopitiam, and it was talking about their lives and what they wanted to do. It was like we worked on about 12 or 15 shorts. We did the soundtrack for it at that time, my previous company. And yeah, that is a great Malaysian show, right? Animation.
Yeah, that's kind of the show you expect a Malaysian translated MTV vibe.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And it's interesting to watch. You should look out on YouTube, right? Blue Curry Pup. You'll find it.
Yeah. It's a creator-driven show. Like that guy, Sydney, was a talent, and he conceptualized it, told his story, told what it was, and it was brilliant. That was my first involvement in animation. That was really early on, and he wanted urban music. It was really like, so we know there was hip hop, there was basketball. It was like everything kids were like youth culture were into at the time.
Wow.
It was back during the Eminem days. That was cool.
I think even pre that, but Drain definitely.
Sounds cool. Last genre will be anime. Underrated anime.
Okay, this is gonna come as a shocker to you, but most underrated anime, pretty much done well. Interesting storytelling, relatable. What's that show? Mr. Hozuki, cool-headed Hozuki. Hozuki-san something.
Hozuki-san. Nice.
Hozuki's cool-headedness is the one with the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
the horn there.
So, but that's the thing, right? All of these things that you're asking regarding underrated shows, it changes as the guy grows. Like, so with me, I liked, most of the stuff, everyone likes, currently, if you say I was 10 years younger, but as I age, my flavor changes and I prefer something a little bit more,
Sophisticated.
down to earth and relatable a bit, and not too high octane, blood rushing into my face and all that while I'm looking at my eyes are going blind, going into epileptic shock and all of that. It's like, yeah, nice, And I do agree. A lot of the shows now in anime, really high quality stuff. They look great, right? But you've got hidden gems like Ozuki, cool-headedness. That if you watch it, it's just very calm, funny, comedic, very nicely done show that is just mellow and you can enjoy it. Another show I watched as well, and it was amazing, and it didn't get any flair, was Mr. Tonegawa.
Wow. So even I don't know who Mr. Tonegawa is, but yeah.
Mr.
What's that?
Mr. Tonegawa is a spin-off show from Kaiji.
Kaiji?
Kaiji, the gambling show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds.
Yeah. So if I were to give any recommends to people, it might not be their flavor. Or maybe someone like me is those two particular shows. If you just want a good time, you don't want to think, and you want to have something relatable, and you want to see, literally adult characters going through life and wondering, what's happening all around them. That's the kind of show you would watch. And I am, a bit disappointed those kind of shows don't really get the traction they kind of deserve because they're done well.
Nice. What about you, Wale?
Well, I'm gonna just obviously I was raised in the UK, so I grew up on completely a Western culture, and coming from the UK and that sort of unique sense of humor, spinning on what Brian was said about the Blue Meanies and the Yellow Submarine, George Harrison and the music side of it. George Harrison, what he did with handmade films, like one of my favorite all-time shows is called With Nail and I, and it's really about the absurdity of life and characters. And growing up, I watched the Cartoon Network shows, the Nickelodeon shows. Cow and Chicken was a favorite. Invader Zim, those sort of shows. But really, for me, it's about the comedians that I loved reading and watching, and the shows that I watched growing up at that time in like the early '90s, or I loved the stand-ups: Bill Hicks, Gene Wilder, Richard Pryor's, the Delbert Wilkins, Ali G, Bo Selector. That sort of irreverent, that kind of comedy absurdist. Of course, coming from the UK, Monty Python and that absurdist sort of humor is what I loved, and that is animation, and their animations were equally as random and crazy, right? So those are the things that really shaped me and my personality, and what I kind of like, and which is why when me and Brian came together and where we want to be doing shows now is pretty much around that area, of what we enjoy doing. So I'm not really technical on the animation, but I think from the comedy side and story and what makes me laugh and what I like doing is laughing. Those are the kind of people, shows, and cartoons that pop culture at the time, right? That's what pretty much I have. I've been really, obviously now mature, and I'm looking at storytelling and sort of observations, animated observations of life, and what you go through, what challenges you have. When you sort of look back at, your early years and what you enjoyed and what you've grown nostalgic about, and how you can implement that into shows. That's what where I am really. So I can't help you with those obscure shows, but I think as long as it's sort of interesting, and me and Brian have a lot of debates. I have introduced Brian to a lot of UK surreal comedy, That's the one thing I've introduced to him, and he's introduced me to a lot more anime and animation. And there's a real cross pollination there in terms of what we enjoy, right? And keep it varied. Just because you're in animation doesn't mean you just watch animation, right? You better watch.
True enough. Nice. Great answers from both parties. Julia, you want to continue?
Yeah, we have a question from the comments. It's from Lorna Henderson Omar. The person asked, what would be your ultimate project to work on as a company?
Well, we have a project which you can't talk about, but it's really personal to me. And I'm working really hard to find the financing and the broadcasters to get it done. That would be if we do that, I don't know if Brian would agree, because Brian has his own ideas. That would be my bucket list right there. But I can't tell you about it. Sorry.
We should have signed the NDA before this show went on. Brian, what would be the ultimate project for you to work on?
Something that will literally, for me or the company, because usually for the company, I do what's best for the company.
I mean, personal and both wise. I mean, you can answer both. No worries.
For me, I would like to work on a project that will let me learn something new, challenge me. Right. I've always wanted to work with the Japanese, but, when I think about it, we don't really have the architecture of the production pipeline that's needed yet to actually fully work on these kinds of shows. Because when you're talking about anime, I really do like to work on it, but the pipeline is very detailed and it's very intricate. And I would like to go into that if I ever have opportunity to work in those conditions. Which I just wish I was able to go to Japan when I was 30 years old. I could have just went there. I wish I had the funds to go there and work over there, really, really sweating, going through the same, hardships like the other animators there, because that was a missed opportunity.
But wouldn't working in as a Japan animator for a Japanese animation, wouldn't it be more harsh? Because I'm not sure if you know, but the latest Attack on Titan, the animation was a bit off, the fans say, and the animators really got the backlash of it very badly for that one episode. It's
but that's the thing. And sorry, I cut you off. You were saying something again?
No, it's just I want your opinion on it. Since you really want to work on it, would you be able to go through and process everything? And what is your reaction to all this unwarranted?
I think. You mean the criticism for the Attack on Titan thingy?
Yeah.
I would say everyone is entitled to their opinion, right? But for someone like me that's been in production, I've seen how hard it is to literally do this stuff. Criticism is criticism, but once you understand what is done by, with the keyframing, the blending, the coloring, the motion capture, everything that goes into one shot, and you see it, you actually grow to appreciate every single thing that is done in there, even though it might not be the greatest. So that is my viewpoint in everything that is art or anything that's animation, because I know and I can see how it's done, that I appreciate what's there, even if it's not to what I expected.
All right. And, I watched that episode and I thought it was totally fine. I don't know what, these crazy fans are talking about.
But that's the thing, right? Fans are, but that's the thing. Fans are fans. They have their opinions. They want the best. And of course, they should get the best. But depending on the situation by the studio or by, the publisher or what have you, certain things will change. And they change for a reason, because something might have happened. Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate, but what's anybody gonna do about it? I mean, it exists. I'll watch it, and if I don't want to watch the anime, I'll just read the manga.
It's a very dangerous path to take when you pick up something well loved and try to or produce that show and to satisfy everyone. You know, even the biggest Hollywood producers and directors and creatives can fall foul of it. So who are we, you know? You can't please
Yeah,
anyone.
because at the end of the day, yeah, sorry to cut you off, Walila. I'll just end it with this opinion is that, you know, there's just so many people out there that are fans with different viewpoints of how they see one particular thing, and their vision of how they see it will change as they go. So you can't please everyone, but you know, art is art, right?
Mm.
It's drawings. I mean, I love, you know, I love Digimon. You know, when I first started watching Digimon, the first season, I loved that. When they changed it to the other new characters, I wasn't, you know, that interested in it, but I still watch it, and along with all the other stuff, right? So for me, every single frame or drawing that is done by an animator, regardless if it doesn't look good or not, you can pick at it. It's fine, right? I've seen stuff in Dragon Ball Super that, yeah, you can probably say some stuff, but you know what? It's animation. Let's enjoy the show.
Mm. Enjoy the hard
Julia's
work.
gonna love Julia's gonna love you for Digimon. You know, 'cause that's like it's like a childhood love, and you know, and probably still is. Think she,
Of course, man. Everybody loves Butterfly.
yeah, Julia especially. She
Right.
doesn't like the real thing, but she just likes the Wadakoji version.
Oh,
Yeah. So sorry if I'm taking too much time. Because when people go for animation or anything to do with games or whatever, I can go on for a very long time. I start going into it like an old man, like, what's in here, kid? Back in my time. Kind of thing.
No, we bank on you to go that long because that's the entire point of the podcast.
yeah.
Now, diving in.
Oh, okay. Maybe
Go ahead.
I should say it. Oh, no. I'm saying that, you know, so that was the game, right? For me to just keep going and the podcast goes longer, I'll zip it. I think I better give opportunity to Wallet to at least go forth a bit.
Right. Now, just to dive into a more serious note, right? You know, in theme with our title today, right? Surviving the animation industry. I would like to know how competitive is the animation industry, both locally and internationally.
Wow. It's like any burgeoning industry. It's crazy competitive. I think, you know, Malaysia is, there's two parts to the Malaysian animated industry. There's like incredible artistic talent here, and that the world takes advantage of by producing their work here, whether it's games, whether it's animation. And there are huge companies here that are doing AAA games, AAA animation. You know, there's that side of it. When you talk about original IP and original creation of shows, you know, the successful ones are the ones that understand who their market is and have started and have built those brands and have been based on whether it's Upin and Ipin or Monst, you know, and Bubba Boy or Agent Ali, and have really built off that brand and the audience that is here. And then you have in the region, then you have the other companies that are looking to create shows that are going to be appealing to the West or to the world. And so, you know, there is not huge amounts of companies in Malaysia, but there are enough. But, you know, obviously the challenge is to find the resources, the funding to be able to make them to that chance. So, yes, it's competitive. When you talk about internationally, of course, it is insane. Like, you know, when in our early days, I was sort of blinded by, like, I think the biggest market, Mitcom. And it was just so huge and so much content and so many people trying to pitch their shows and what makes you different and what makes you better and who are you? Where are you from? Have you done it before? These are all the questions. So yeah, it's incredibly competitive. And if you, like, one of the first things when we started, I actually did was we didn't do anything for a year other than travel. I even got Brian, who's just been an animation cave troll. And I said, Brian, get yourself a passport. We went to Korea. He went to France. And I really sort of said, like, we need to absorb and understand what we're up against. So I think Brian had never left Malaysia until he met me, right?
You want me to click on this one? Yeah, but yeah, this is basically also to answer the question: are the competitive or the industry, right? Here was my perspective. As an animator who worked in the industry, or at least during that part of time, I thought that, hey, it doesn't seem that bad, right? Then I had the opportunity to start a company with Wallet. And for the first time in my life, I was able to go on a trip to Annecy and look at everyone there who is doing great stuff. And from there, everything shattered. That bubble that actually was there in the beginning, it was gone. Suddenly, my confidence went down the toilet. I was like, man, I'm nobody. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on.
His confidence was shattered, and
I mean,
give me a drink because I'm a bit thirsty. But yeah, just to continue, all perceptions of what I believed in before was shattered in just one go, just because I went up to look at what others was doing there, and from there I saw, oh my God, everyone is great, everyone is better. Who am I? By that point, I'd ask myself, okay, am I going to sink now, or do I have to learn from all this right now? I got to do something right now. Otherwise, I'm just going to sink. So, I learned as fast as possible, as much as possible as I was capable, even doing tasks in certain, particular departments that I didn't even know how to do, and I had to learn it from the ground up. And then, all the way until today, I was able to be a jack of all trades just by that desperation to learn and learn and learn. I'm not the best at everything, but at least I can, sit on the table and understand what a person is saying and do certain things here and there. But yeah, it's incredibly competitive. Never ever say that you're the best or you're perfect. It will never happen. There's always someone out there that will say, "Oh, but I'm better by 5%."
Your show is better than 5%. No, there's just too many shows out there. And, you have to ask yourself this, if you want to get your show made, like what Brian was saying, who are you? Have you done it before? Why should I give you $1 million to help you make the show? So, one of the challenges that we come from Malaysia is thankfully we have MDEC, My Creative, and they help you fund your shows. But the challenge is how to utilize the money that you have and the money you have there to keep going to these markets so you build a relationship and trust so that eventually they're going to go, hey, you're still here after 5 years? Oh, I do like your shows. Maybe I think it's time that we work together, because it's a question of sustaining yourself so they know that you are for real, right? Because people come and go. I've got this great idea. They try and get it made for a year, 2 years, and then they give up. And that's the rite of passage. That's the test that you have. So, because everyone's doing that. So it's a question of how much longer can you last to all the other people, and what street smarts do you have, and what avenues, what networking abilities, all of these things that you need to have, all powers, your ability to hang out and meet people. One of the main challenges in connecting with people is how do you introduce yourself? If you're not getting meetings in these places to introduce yourself, it's like, I'm going to hang around here, wait for them to go to the bar and bump into them and go, hey, how's it going? Can I buy you a drink? And then, is there all of these underlying tactics where you need to meet the right people, at the right place, at the impromptu time? These are the things that help you in this competitive field, right? If you're just going to go to a market like Annecy and sit there and say, hey, look at my show, ain't going to happen. You've got to go out there and go, look at my show, look at it, and you've got to be like that rather than sort of, thinking that you've got something that people want. There's a million people, 1,000. Well, I mean, you go to Annecy, there's like 2,000 people with shows. Ideas.
Yeah.
One out of 2,000. What makes you outstanding, right?
Yeah.
So is it like
your ability to it's your ability to get out there, and that's my job. Like for Brian and our ideas for our team is to have a champion for your company that will go through hell and back to make sure that people know who you are and what you can do and what story you want to tell and why it's important that you work with us. These are all the realities of the animation business. Is your advocacy for your team and what you believe in that you can achieve. That's the crux of it. And if people believe in like you as the head of the company, and you believe in your team, then everything can work out if you have the right values and ethics for producing your show. So then when you give in the money, you put the right money in casting, you put the right money in writing, you put the money where it counts, where it's going to be seen, heard on the show. And that's what they will look for. They'll test you. If you go to them and say, oh, we're going to write it in Malaysia, we're going to voice it in Malaysia, we're going to do this in Malaysia and do it whole in Malaysia, they're like, but like, why wouldn't you use, that's not going to be appealing to a network in the US or the UK or Europe or Korea or wherever it is you want to. They want to know that you're going to be working with creatives around the world because it's a collaboration. So, you've got to collaborate with exceptional people that know more than you. And
sorry for cutting you, but so is that the reason why for like Hoggy, the Global Hopper, like I noticed some of the writers are actually known kids show writers in international, like Andy Yerkes, which did that Bear in the Big Blue House show, and also like Franklin Young.
The reason why, like when we started and we looked for writers, actually at the time, my favorite preschool show is Pocono, right? Just such a beautiful, lovely, sweet show. My kids loved it. And, I'm that sort of person that if I admire someone and I want to work with them, I'll find them and I will work with them. That's the way I work. That's the way I do it. So we found him and we worked with him and he helped us make that show and taught us a lot, taught us an incredible amount. And the rest is history. But like one thing I knew very importantly is, it's not about who we are, it's about who we've got on the project. Right? We are no one's. But what it demonstrates when you bring in a person like him and the writing team, and you've got like, I don't know, a creative consultant or whatever other additional people, you're showing a broadcaster or a distributor or a financier or anyone who's going to help you sell your project or buy your project that you're serious and that you don't know everything and that you need creatives to help you make this show. The worst thing you can do is say, look, I'm going to do everything because I know everything. That is just like, it's just like, you're out there. Yeah, exactly.
It's the biggest lie you can tell.
Exactly. The bottom line is complete. This is a collaboration. Most shows usually cannot be financed by one company alone. It's co-productions. You might get a show produced in Australia and Malaysia and Germany, or you might get it Australia, Malaysia, Korea, Malaysia, UK, Australia, Malaysia. It does. It can be like that, and because it's so expensive, you would split that up. So in that sense, you would have to learn how to work together with people, and this is important. One head, two heads better than one, etc., right? And that's pretty much how you can compete. If you go in there as being a hero, you ain't getting it. But if you sit there and say, hey, why don't you come together? Much like when me, Lorna, and Brian came together, it's like three minds coming together and building something.
Very nice. Brian, anything to add? Anything to add,
Yeah.
Brian?
Yeah.
No, basically anything to add, yeah.
No, Wale pretty much just nailed it already. If you want to pretty much, get into a project, it is best to have as collaboration because at the end of the day, There is no way that one shoulder is going to be able to take all of that stress. That's going to collapse. No way.
Yeah. And that's what we do. Actually, we've been working with a few smaller studios, creators over this pandemic, and working with them, developing shows, working on other people's shows, just helping them shape them and think about things differently, and where to position a show, how to get the most out of the show or the funds that you have, to give it its best shot. I think these are the things that we've kind of learned in the last 5 years, to reasonable success as far as Malaysia is concerned. But there's so much to learn and so much to understand that we're always learning and adapting. I think it's the important thing when you're competing is try and be a sponge when you're competing.
Soak up
absorb and keep absorbing.
Just like what SpongeBob said, eh?
Oh yeah, but he does it in a very, very weird manner.
Yeah, just to follow up on what Brian said earlier about managing stress, right? Now, stress is a very big component in any industry, right? So, my question is, how happy are animators? Right? I know it's like a very open-ended question. How happy are animators?
You have to define it again. What do you mean?
I guess.
No, I was just saying, how happy is anyone with their lives? I think that's the biggest question. I'm kind of guessing. What are you drilling? What do you sort of? Could you go into a bit more detail? What do you mean?
Right. So basically, I guess what I'm drilling towards here is balance, work-life balance. How happy are the general animators with the industry requirements, etc., etc. Basically job satisfaction. Animators are people who are in general, they just stress about work and go back home, sleep, and then they come back. I know earlier on we had that conversation with Brian, and Brian was telling me that he could go on like a bullet train. On the long term specifics, how happy is anyone working in the animation industry as a long term gig?
Well, that's the thing, right? The thing with the question is that it's a general question that is trying to be applied to everyone, and there's not going to be an answer for that, because you're going to have people that will say, I don't feel anything, I can go forward. And then you'll have the people that feel that, I'm burnt out, I'm tired, So it's going to be very hard to really, give an answer to something like that, because each person is different.
Yeah, I think, like what we've tried to do is, because I like my time off, Brian likes his time off, we try to keep the hours civilized. I can't really speak for the industry, but ultimately, when deadlines slip, where situations call for it, that you're asked to work that extra mile, then that's just part and parcel of what we do. Of course, like any industry, you'll have good owners, good producers, bad producers, people that are pushed to the limit, but that's just part and parcel of, you could work in any industry and experience something similar, especially in Malaysia where, salaries are not the best, perhaps people can argue, but, we've heard all of the news all over the world about animators and their working conditions and payments. So not something that is unique to Malaysia or anything. And I think as a business owner who has to walk the wire, you do your best and try to be as honest and upfront with people and what you need to get done. The animation companies walk a thin line, because it's so capital intensive. Any delay, if you've got 60, 70, 80, sometimes 300 people, the knock-on effects of those can seriously damage the health of a company. So there's it's never easy for an owner to balance everyone's wants, and all you can do is the best you can with the right intentions. That's all you can do. And if you're not happy as an animator, you can try and raise that. You can try to address it and see what can be done. But it's not easy. I think it's a tough one though.
Yeah, I'll jump on that thing and say, yeah, it's not tough because I'm sorry, it's not tough. It's not easy. Back then when I was an animator, I've seen people get burned out. I've seen people, literally leave the industry because they couldn't, take the pressure and all that, right? So yeah, it's really hard. But then the question comes to me where some of these guys who have left the industry can say, Brian, what are you doing? Oh, I have a company. Oh, what is it? Selling cars? No, animation. You still do animation? What are you? What? Aren't you afraid? All the people say you work so hard. This is like, yeah, but it's the only thing I know how to do. So I hope that answers something because for me, yeah, for an animator, if you really do love making cartoons, really do it, and you can keep doing it for at least a decade and make sure that when you go up that ladder, you are focusing on the goal, you'll go somewhere. Just make sure when you start your path, you do aim for the goal and you don't let distractions turn you away from it. That would be the mistake. Because everything has a goal. You want to sell cars, what's your goal? You want to be a manager. You want to make stuff and you want to run your own business. You got to take up, accounting and all this stuff and learn from that stuff. It's a long steps. So long as you start out knowing what you want and what you want to become at least 35 years old, hopefully, then at least you're aiming for it instead of just doing the bulk and just moving forward with no aim. This is the one thing everyone needs to understand in a working condition, not just animation. Have a goal.
I mean, that's one of the biggest challenges when you ask, I just want to draw, I just want to do my characters, I just want to animate. But like, if you keep pushing yourself, you'll find yourself going into uncomfortable situations. And that's what you want to put yourself in, where you're always bettering yourself.
Yeah.
Us at this age now and what we're doing, but when you're starting out we all started somewhere and we all got abused by someone in work.
Yeah.
But it's how you take that information and how you use it, and because most of the abuse you get, you would have learned tons from, and I've got many people through my life who made me work too hard, but I appreciate it, and I think that's something maybe the new generation have kind of lost. Is like, when I started out, I didn't get to sit in the sound studio. I had to serve coffee and tea and clean toilets before they would allow me to do that. And that was back then, But now you get an education, you go into animation, and you're it, right? But that's an old timer's point of view, I just think that. Yeah.
just to point it out, right? It was back then. It's the same in Malaysia, because Malaysia is still, it's in a nice time bubble. You were saying something, Brian.
It's just, Wallet has a point, right? Back in those days, things were brutal. And, if you have a director on top of you, they don't hold back like in these days, right? If they want to tell you something that they don't like, you'll be lucky if they don't throw anything at you.
It's like a dodging game suddenly.
But you know what? Back in those days, because of the harsh treatments I received, of course, I will never do it to anyone these days because I went through it doesn't mean I have to do it. I'm just lucky I survived.
Let's put it down to character building stuff.
Yeah.
Third year character building, right?
Yeah, but what I say is true concerning uncomfortable situations and being creatives. A lot of people who are really really into animation or art, we like to closet ourselves and be in our own little space because we're comfortable with it. But once you step out of the uncomfortable space, you're gonna be very scared. It's gonna be very uncomfortable. But once you keep taking those baby steps and getting out of there, you'll be surprised how much an individual can change from their perspective, their talent, and how they work just by taking the first 5 steps out. Baby steps. No one's asking you to rush out the door. Yeah, no, don't do that. You will collapse. One step at a time. Meet a person, greet them, talk to them, understand, relate, learn.
Nice. That sounded like an educational advertisement, right?
What? No, I just made it up.
Yeah, sounded like a soundbite.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was not scripted, right? When I usually get in the mood and energetic, stuff just comes out of my head that I didn't know was actually there. Well, I can actually tell you that. I forget things I say sometimes.
Well, you're
And,
getting a very candid. You're getting a very candid conversation here about what runs in our head.
Yeah.
And candid is good.
Yeah.
And
But yeah, for me,
just to
man.
draw, yeah, just to draw off what Brian said earlier, right? Being in an basically being in an uncomfortable situation, environment, etc., right? My question is, how hard is it to land a job in the animation industry? Number one. Number two, what are the criterias that you look for when you are hiring someone? Because hiring, I'm pretty sure most employers would look at two distinct um, categories. Number one would be skill set, and the other one will be attitude and personality, right? So, what are you looking for in those aspects when it comes to the animation industry, especially? And while it can chime in, no problem.
Well, it's not-
Wallet,
I don't do the hiring, so
Yeah.
Brian.
yeah,
Nice.
usually for the hiring, we let our manager go into that lot. But of course, but just to answer a bit of that question, what I would look for in a person when it comes to animation, skill sets are great. If you can animate, you can draw. That's great. That means you don't have to start out from the ground up, and you're already there in the middle ground. But you'd be surprised. We do have people who came from one field. It's still art, but it has nothing to do with the field this guy selected. Went in there, and in 2 months, 3 months, he went up big time. Because why? The guy was serious in doing it. He wasn't just there saying, "Oh, please, give me the job. I need it." No, he says, "Trust me. Give me a few months. See what I can do." Then, all right. I like the confidence. It didn't come off like he was being arrogant, and he was willing to put his reputation on the line, and I accepted it. That was a very, best way to put it. And there was also a few other guys who does this. So to answer your question, what do I look for? Talent, but most important of all, patience and the will to grow. Because the will to grow will always upstage talent at the end of the day. Talent will only get you so far if the will itself allows you.
So you look for teachability,
Teachability.
and also the ability to learn, right? To keep growing.
Yeah, that's the most important part for anyone coming into working field. Not just animation, sales, what have you, even admin stuff. If you are an individual who don't go up to your employer, of course not, I'm not going to say all employers are of a particular thing, and you say, "I'm willing to learn, teach me all you got." And after you're done, you say, "Give me more, because I'm still young, I can still go forward," right? And you keep doing that. And sooner or later, they're going to look at you and say, "Holy my God, man, this guy, I teach him one thing, he learns it, then he wants another one, he keeps taking the punches and he keeps coming at me." It's like, who is this guy? That is the one thing an employer, wish they could see. Something you put in front of the staff and they go, "Please, sir, can I have one more?" Are you serious?
I think, to sum that
yesterday. We want one more.
Observations with Brian, and when we discuss, when he comes in and he tells me, "Oh, we just met this guy," it's like it's raw talent that is appealing to us as a company, that energy to learn. And I think that's something that we've sort of pivoted to. When we started, we were looking for safe hands, and we hired a lot of safe hands. But right now, as we what we are looking as we grow our company is the raw, unbridled talent and energy that it takes when you're coming into the company. Because I think, with the people that we have with Brian, they've got great people to learn from. So, we want the people that have got fresh minds and fresh talent and ready to jump into the industry for a new experience. I think that if you're looking for what Lil Critter wants,
Yeah. So just to close up what Wallace said, right? When we're talking about patience and willing to learn, I will just say this to everyone. I learned animation myself. I taught myself animation. I didn't learn it right from a college. I sat on a table taking a lamp or whatever. I think it's white boxes. And I trained myself on a paper, just copying, trying to trace and keep learning as I go, because I want to do cartoons. I want to make my own show. I want to animate Mazinga when I get bigger. It's like I want all that stuff. So I just pushed and pushed and pushed. And I remember I was in high school and I was doing that. And it's the same with everyone else who has the will to learn now. If you come in and you say, I have no talent, but I'm super serious in order to go that path, but I have a bit of it, maybe a bit of understanding. There is opportunity there for you, but of course, your first impression is important. Do not come in and present yourself too confident. It might come out as arrogance.
You got it. Wise words.
That's the
Definitely
mistake
was.
that most that's the mistake most of the Gen Z does today.
Technically, I wouldn't blame them, because sometimes, remember the day when we were kids and someone would tell us, oh, if you're confident enough, you make sure you act confident and go for the interview and make sure you tell the person, I am very confident, I'm the best hire you want. It's kind of like an ingrained thing that we're used to being told when we're young. So I wouldn't blame them. It's more like, let's be honest, if you go to college or you leave high school, in what particular area were you given exposure to actually, learn how to, go through an interview? A proper interview.
Nice.
Exactly, right? You are not given that chance to experience it. So most of the people who come out, who's looking for opportunity and a will to learn, they are uncomfortable. They don't know how to react. They don't know how to talk. They don't know what to say in front of employer. And I've met a few of them that are like that, which I was like, come down. I'm just like you. I just want to know, what can you do? Show me what you got. I'm not gonna fight. And of course, they're still nervous because they've always been among themselves in that, group of artists or whoever. They don't know what to say and they're too afraid to offend. But then you have another group that comes in that is so confident that you're wondering, wow, this guy sounds like he has 15 years of experience. Maybe I should give him my job. That kind of thing, right? So there needs to be that level of understanding that, and I hope it is applied where, these guys, and girls, when they come out, take it slow, ask the questions, be humble, and you can never go wrong.
Wise words. Great advice.
Great advice for me to use.
Yes, I just wanted to point that out. Now, Julia, you wanna continue on with your questions?
Yeah, actually backtracking to the earlier conversation about like how burnout and like stress as an animator and how happy an animator is like, how has the animation industry coped in the current mental health situation, like with the pandemic and everything? Because it's not going to be easy now, considering everyone's working from home, everyone has to maintain that distance, and there's the pandemic over it. So how is this industry coping with it?
Wow. I think one of the great, we can be a lot. We can personally, as a company, for us, we've been non-stop working, and I think we haven't had too many problems. I think some of our staff actually enjoy working from home, so it's really been an enabler for them. I think, hey, I'm saving money. I don't need to travel. I don't need to do this and this. So we've had a few like that. We've had some people that can't stand being in the place and want to come back. So I think we highlight we actually just had our town hall like yesterday, Friday, I think it was. So and we just highlight, if you've got these, if you're having these feelings, you've got anxiety, you've got these things, you just need to. We're here for you to hear them out. I don't think personally for us we've had any real difficulties. I think with the current climate, I think we've got to be thankful for what we have and the company being in that position, and as individuals collectively be thankful that we've got jobs and we are working, and we're a technology based industry where we are able to do that. So there's a lot to be thankful for when you look at around us what's happening, right? So I think the mental health issues are very real. And I think we all are tired of what we've had to endure the last year. And the best thing we can do is keep smiling and help where we can and make people laugh. That's what.
It's the humor, right? Takes you through life.
The laughter is the gateway to the soul, as they say.
I mean, if you're asking about difficulties for me personally, I would say, one of the things I miss is actually literally having everyone in the office and me able to, go to the computer and go, this pose could be better. Watch me pose like this and copy it. That kind of thing, right? Or watch me just jump up and down and look at the speed and just imitate that kind of thing, right? It's so much easier to get the message across when you're just doing it in front of them, and then they just write their email going, this goes here, that goes here, let me pick up my watercolor and draw this here, and I was like, okay, let me, did I save as JPEG or PNG? Oh wait, did I upload it? Oh wait, did I upload it to the wrong email? Oh, okay, no, I closed it. Okay, now I go to the email to find all of it. Wait, there's 20 of them. Oh my, that kind of thing, right? because everything's online now, and by all means, in this particular age now with COVID, do stay home. You are just drowned by emails, and you got to go through so many of them, especially if you made a mistake by uploading a different note to a different file, and then you close it, and you have to go look at it again, and then you're wondering, oh my, it's a mess up. So that's why those are the one things I miss. But I can go, hey, let's do it this way, or compared to the mistakes that I could do now if I, for some reason, my eyes twitch and suddenly I click the X button by mistake. Oh
no! The life of an animation director, right there.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, very animated.
Because my coordinator does call me out a few times saying, Brian, this is not the right note. Brian, you didn't check this. Brian is like, okay, mommy, I get it.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's a different working lifestyle than what I'm used to, because I always like working in the office, but you gotta do what you gotta do, right? Especially for the safety of the staff.
Yeah. We just try to be there for our staff and where we can. Unfortunately, most animators like being at home. Yeah, you've got everything you need. It's it's the bigger question is what happens afterwards. This is right.
When you're so used to being at home already, right, and you have to go back to the office, you're like, I cannot.
Some people will want to carry on. Some people might want to come back in the office. I think that, like Brian was saying, the bit that we miss the most, especially because we do a lot of pre-production and creative, is having like the team together to hash out and work stuff out, and get that collaborative is a lot harder on a camera.
Yeah. It's so wide the camera can go, especially without me, hitting my knee onto the table by accident.
Trials and tribulations of a animation director.
Digressed from the mental health thing, but like for us, I think the animation industry has a great opportunity to build upon here, like especially for doing work outside. The original IP has been challenging in this climate because the money's not around. So like what we've done in the last year is pivot to providing services to bigger companies in the US or the UK or the Europe or wherever, and just provide our services for them while this whole world works itself out, right? I think that's the OM at the moment. And I think our animators are happy as well. We work on a variety of interesting projects. We do a lot of design work. We do a lot of storyboarding. So, all of the extra fun bits, creative bits, our team gets to do. And I hope they're liking it.
Julia?
All right. Although this is actually a bit more a different question now, but like nowadays kids they go on YouTube a lot, right? And I noticed that for Lil Critter, you guys put on Hoggy the Globe Hopper. Like you have a YouTube channel for it, but it's not it's not the series itself, but it's like nursery rhymes and like storytelling. So like, what's the strategy behind like putting all those videos onto YouTube? Like, is it for awareness or like to get more views or like possible YouTube income or like?
Well, like when we started this, and this shows you how important money is, right? When we started this, we came up with the plan. Like Hoagie, when we pitched the show and presented it, we actually won a pitching competition in Korea for the best album of the show. And so we said, like, okay, we're going to make this show. It's going to go on every TV channel in the world, right? Because we believe that. And then so because it's going to be exclusively on TV or SVOD or whatever it is, we need to create some additional content for the YouTubers. So when they watch the show, they can watch something different on there. So that was the strategy. And what we did is take the themes from the show and then sort of say, okay, so, we're going to have songs from around the world. We're going to have fun facts from around the world. We're going to have fables and stories from around the world and put our characters in, and hopefully we'll be able to generate that, But of course, being a small studio and our resources being minimal, we had to focus in one area. So what we thought we'd do is create an initial body of work, put it up there, and then focus on the TV and the high-end production that we are doing. So that's pretty much the reasoning, the planning for it. But one of the things, like especially in social media and that whole space, is you need a dedicated team driving it, and that was something that we just didn't have the resources for at the time, and we needed to pick. But what we did is everything. I look at it as a learning experience for us on how you strategize, how you put the financing together, not for just making the show, but everything else. So, you're going to have one budget. Games is perfect for that. Your marketing budget for games is almost as big as the cost of making the game, right? Because you need that. So for companies in Malaysia, just raising the money to make the show is one thing. Never mind everything else you need to do to promote it, right? So I guess that's the answer. That's the challenge and the answer for it. It was sort of like, you need to do it, but we can't sustain it. Okay, never mind. Let's just keep doing this. If we're brutally honest, that was the bottom line on it. So hopefully it will pick up as we go further, because, like we said, shows take such a long time to mature and get known. Like, if you ask how long it took Peppa Pig, it was actually 6 to 7 years, 5 to 6, 7 years before it exploded. So, and they had a really strong platform. So, you live in hope. You live in hope that one day someone discovers it and it goes viral, and then suddenly you're, a hit show. But that's pretty much the answer, I think. Right, Brian?
Pretty much right. There's not really much to add on top of that, right? It was a spur of an idea, and we just got it done.
We planned for it. We got the budget. We got it done, but we didn't really plan for sustaining that with people. Learn your lessons, people. Have 2 budgets. Have a YouTube budget and have a TV budget.
Marketing budget separate from the project budget.
Exactly. Yeah. When you think it wasn't hard enough, you got to do 2. Always 2, never 1.
Question for Walid, right? A quick one. How hard is it to get investors to invest in a project locally versus internationally? How hard is it?
Ah,
Locally is practically impossible. We got like, our first two shows, we fully financed it ourselves through the help of the Malaysian government, of course. Without them, nothing would get made. The broadcasters here do what they can, but they only have a limited budget, and they can only pick up so many shows. I think when we started, we just wanted to challenge ourselves internationally. So we always went there and hoped that we would find the buyers there that would help us make the show. And it's tough, I think we were fortunate to make those shows, and, we're still waiting to recoup on them. But, we set out a lot of planning and strategy with the way we've done it. So we have things covered, and we'll wait patiently. But it's practically impossible in Malaysia to finance a show, I would say. Maybe 2 shows a year, you'd be lucky to get maybe Astro or Media Prima or someone else, come on board and help you produce the show. So when you think about it like that, it's tough. It's a tall order. That's all I can say. That's the short answer. Sorry.
Brian, anything to add on?
No, man. He's the businessman, man. I just sit in the cave.
Julia, anything to add on?
No.
And before we ask, I think we've actually reached the end of our podcast. Right?
No?
How far time flies when
It's
you're
in
having
it.
fun.
Yeah.
So, I guess the last question would be your message to aspiring animators in Malaysia and even worldwide. What would be the message that you would like to leave these guys? Would it be one of hope, or would it be one of despair? Right?
I think the show, when we make shows, we're here. We create shows that are aspirational, so they're supposed to be there to inspire people. So I think just follow your dreams. I think is important. Know what you want and go for it. And if it seems unattainable, find the steps that you need to take to attain it. I think that's how I've lived my life. I think, Brian, anyone who's passionate about what they want to do, aim high, always.
I mean, at the end of the day, right, if there was actually like a book written about my life, about how I became an animator, you would see the road literally paved with nails to where I get, man. It was painful. But yeah, if it was an inspirational quote, I'm not the smartest guy around to come up with something smart, right? Unless I have a brain fart. So I'm going to be corny. In the words of a rat who knows how to cook, everyone can animate.
It's like no infringement from Disney right there, right?
No, man.
Slide in that reference.
No, I mean, there's a lot of talented people out there, man. There's so many of them, man. Incredible. If you want something, you have to be determined. You've got to be patient, and you got to be willing to learn. But most importantly, you got to go through that same fire like everyone else. And once you go through that, you come out, man. You'll be diamond. You'll be a hard as steel, man.
Diamond, nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, right? The more pressure you take, you become a diamond. And you just need to know how to deal with that pressure.
True that. Yeah.
True that. And I think if that is all from both of you guys, right? I would like to thank you guys so much, right? Walid and Brian, for coming on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's about it, right? And
Well, I actually half expected you to ask us what games we play, but I guess that's okay.
you know what? If you want to answer that as like a bonus question, go ahead, right? Like,
Because you are a gaming particular channel. I know what Wallet plays.
oh, please please feel free to share with us
No, this
as
is just
long as it doesn't get us into trouble.
this is like a bonus round, because you guys are also contributing games. I see your Facebook. I would say, hey, you guys want quick games? Play Wild Rift. You guys want to go on Steam? Hey, there's always Dead by Daylight. Hey, if you don't like that as well, there's always Runeterra. Quick and fast.
Wow, nice.
There you go. I can't compete with that, so I won't.
What is Walid playing?
I don't play many games, unfortunately. Because for me, I have to just play the casual games because my head is always thinking about work, and so I kind of don't really play anything other than Clash Royale at the moment, sadly, because
Wow.
it's 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes. It's done, and I'm out of there, and I'm looking at something else. So that's the disappointing statement of the game for me.
That's it's the touch and go method, right?
Yeah, for me, it's just a break from looking at what I need to do next.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's spending time with my kids. Then I have them, and playing video games with my kids is just embarrassing. So, I'm just at that different headspace. I've got kids, and they're the most important thing. My partner, and my time away from work is my time with them. It's the most.
How do you handle losses? When you play with your kids and they beat you at games, how do you handle the losses?
Well, actually, I just don't play because it's just like the laughing's too much. So we encourage board games. We encourage board games that were one of the biggest challenges as a parent now is getting them away from the screen, right? So, especially at the weekend, that's why they're enjoying me because I've come to the office to do this podcast. They're playing games right now, but when I get back, it's like, yeah, boy, you get to spend some time with your daddy. Let's go and watch a film. Let's play something else, So for me, it's just like peeling them away is the challenge and the interest and getting them to play their instruments and doing other stuff, talk nonsense, that sort of stuff is what we try to do away from the job and away from what we do is try to get away from everything. It's hard, but that's important.
But you guys can see, you're right. Walid is married and have kids. I don't have kids yet, but once I have kids, man, I can probably kiss all that goodbye as well.
It's all that free time, right?
Well, all my Steam games can literally, sit in the back closet to eternity at that point already.
The backlog becomes real, right? You will never finish this list.
It's growing, but oh my god, it's such a bad sight when I look at it.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Walid. Thank you, Brian. Both from Lil Critter Workshop, right? Thank you so much, right? From the bottom of my heart, it was really a very enlightening experience. A great podcast, right? And on behalf of Julia and myself, CM Cha, I would like to sign off from the Magic Raincast. Thank you, guys, for tuning in.
Thank you.
And we will see you very soon.